Hello, everyone. It's Lydia from the Oneness Junkie podcast and YouTube channel. And today I'm always interested in introducing you to our guest. And today our guest is Suzanne Harrill. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's good to have you. And I'll just share with the audience I got the opportunity to interview Suzanne probably about a week or so ago for my other podcast. So, this is going to be a fun second opportunity for us to talk about her book. But this time on the Oneness Junkie podcast, we get to go a little bit deeper. So, get ready, buckle in, and enjoy the ride. So, Suzanne, will you take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, I'd like to introduce myself with my current life, and I've had many of them this lifetime. I I've been married for 57 years to the same person, which says a lot. And I am a grandmother. I've got three daughters that I'm very close to, and all the six grandkids I'm very close to. And I like to, human behavior is like my number one interest. So like I love to see the differences in these kids that are my grandkids, and fortunately we're in a time frame where the parenting allows them to be who they are, so they're all on different paths, and it's just wonderful for me because as a grandmother I can really get into my grandkids more than I could with my kids. And I like to do art. I've been giving my paintings away for 50 years, selling a few, and I like writing. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. And I will say, because I want the audience to know where all the wisdom, comes from in the book that we're about to speak of. But for how many years were you in LPC?
Um, Around 40.
Oh, see, there's a lot of learning in that experience, right?
Yeah. In other words, I learned from my clients, and I learned early on that everyone's my teacher. So whoever showed up, I knew I was also talking to myself. But fortunately, people would come to me that were a step behind with the patterns and the issues that I had worked on and figured some of it out. So, but I always paid attention because you circle through your issues at a higher turn of the spiral. And, working on myself is how I was able to help other people.
Yeah, and I mean, basically like a way shower, because if we haven't walked through the journey, I just really don't see how people who have just read about it in a textbook, can really teach it. It's just too difficult to really get it at the level of empathy and concern and caring. So if you really wanted your clients to really have healing, having gone through it yourself, that gave you compassion that you might not have had otherwise, right?
Yes. And I mean, all the books that I read through the years, I mean, my clients would have the opportunity for me to glean the wisdom. And, at a young age, like when I went to first grade, I realized I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't know it was the kind of teacher that works with adults or a spiritual teacher, which I was at certain times in my life. And now, the more I know, the less I know. And anyway, so I would like to teach people what I figured out for myself.
Yes, that reminds me. It makes me feel like, I must have said I wanted to be a teacher of pain and how to get through it, because I've definitely experienced a lot of pain and now I know how to get through it. And so it's just beautiful. And I have to tell y'all, the name of the book that we're talking about that she wrote is called Wake Up. Your Body is Telling You Something: How to Grow and Evolve from Health Challenges and Life Altering Circumstances. And it's on Amazon, and I'll put a link in the description below so y'all can find it easily. But I wanted to mention it because while I was reading it, and I said this before, I was just going, yes, yes, Yes. Oh, yeah. Like everything she was saying was so validating to what I had learned in my journey and my experience. And so to have somebody like Suzanne write it down and put the experiences in words, and then the lessons, and then the resolve and the resolution all in words, it was just so validating to read. It was really great,
And for
Suzanne.
me, to have somebody get me was very fulfilling too, because a lot of people don't want to listen to what I have to say. So when I write it down, then the people can find me that want that information.
I love that. And I will go back and share that somebody had invited me to a talk that you did at a spiritual center. And I kind of showed up like, okay, I'll do that. Like I don't have anything to do on Saturday. It wasn't like I really knew, what I was really showing up for. But when you listen to your intuition and you just say yes to life when it kind of shows up, I really like to go with the flow with myself. I don't like to reschedule really far in advance because I don't feel that gives me freedom to
Right.
choose as much as,
Mhm.
what do I want to do based on how I'm feeling in the moment? Because every day insights and information's coming my way.
Right.
And so just meeting you in that setting was so great. And I knew that I wanted to support the book by buying it, but I didn't know how powerful and impactful the book would be, so much so that I wanted to tell the world about it on my podcast and on my YouTube channel. So that's why we're going to delve in and share with the world why your book is so important and why I actually think everyone should have a paperback copy sitting in their library. This is a book you want on your shelf because I guarantee you're going to want to reference it. Suzanne and I were talking before I hit record. Even though it's only 64 or so pages, which seems like a small book, it's so powerful that you're going to spend a lot of time with the book. Even though you may read through it quickly, there's a lot of meat and things to unpack, while you're reading it, right?
Yeah, and it's a little longer with all the appendix information.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah, you give a lot in the background of, assessments and things that like ask yourself questions and the appendix, areas, right? Like journaling for self discovery. You have a self esteem appendix. And by the way, let's mention that you started teaching, right? Self esteem at a
right.
young age.
I started, my husband got transferred to Louisiana and they had a small university, Nickel State in Thibodeau. I didn't even know how to spell Thibodeau or where it was. But, anyways, they had great food. And uh, I got a job teaching there. And self esteem was part of the program. And this was like in 1979. And I learned so much about myself because uh, all the psychology stuff was more like mental until some people like L.S. Barksdale wrote his self-esteem book. So when my husband got transferred back to Houston, which we have lived here many times, I started working on myself, creating workshops. And then for 25 years, I taught self esteem workshops. And as I have said before, you teach what you're learning. So it took me 25 years to build my self esteem at a level that was not based on what other people thought, what other people said, what other people judged me for. Now, I'm not saying my knee jerk reaction isn't to respond and not like those experiences, but I learned to catch myself and correct the self talk, the critical voice in my mind, affirm new affirmations, flip the negative self talk. And so I put into practice the 25 years that I was teaching it. And now, I've got lots of books on self esteem, a daily affirmation, and they're all free on my website. You can download them. And
What's the
that's
website?
innerworks.com. innerworkpublishing.com. INNERWORKS. And the book has a lot to do with inner work.
So if you're not into that, you probably won't want to download anything.
Right. It's about examining your life and at a higher turn of the spiral, because some of us that are attracted to this journey, this spiritual journey, want to know where our blind spots are. We want to know where we could make our lives easier, our relationships easier, not react as much. And so
what I would add to that is, what comes to mind for me is the inner work is the journey you take when you don't want to suffer so much anymore, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a lot of suffering that's available, and we can stay in it if we want to, but we
Right.
can also choose another path.
Right. I mean, there's lots of interesting things, and the thing that's coming to my mind right now, someone taught me years ago that if you're too far into the future, your energy that's connecting you from spirit through the center of your body into the core of the earth is too far forward. And if you're stuck too much in the past, it's too far back. And so the visualization, just seeing that spiritual light come in the top of your head and go down your spine into the earth, will help balance. Some people get stuck in the past and they have a real hard time. So that's a quick visualization.
Yeah, that's a great visual. So you get that by living in the present moment and not worrying about the future, which hasn't happened yet, or focusing on the past, which you can't change. And you know that quote where they say that the present is a gift. That's why they call it the present.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Now, I don't want to mean that you don't think about things that affect you from the past, but you can do things in the present that make you not be stuck. Because, like, back in the 80s, when I would do workshops or retreats, people talked about their issues over and over and over. We don't do that anymore. It's like we can tell our story, but we can't get stuck in the story, because that keeps us reactivating the pain from the past. So the present is how you do things differently. And what you do in the present, of course, affects the future. So.
And we have choices, right? We have free will and we have choices.
Yes.
So to begin referring to what the book is all about, I told you I wasn't going to read anything from the book, but I just changed my mind. That's called free will. We get to change our mind. Isn't that a beautiful thing? I'm demonstrating it right now, and everyone listening has the right to change their mind at any moment.
Yes.
So true, right, Suzanne?
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to read this part, and it's just part of the foreword. And the reason I want to read it is because it sets the context of why she wrote the book. Okay, so it says, the theme of this book is to meet unexpected challenges head on as a means to grow and evolve spiritually. Challenges have hidden gifts when we allow them to further wake us up. As it becomes habit to examine your life, which is what we were just saying the inner work is, you will expand your horizons and find how good it feels to be an aware, authentic, healthy, creative human being. Your rich inner life sustains you when unwanted surprises land on your path. May you find love, joy, and deep peace as you read this book and examine yourself. Love and blessings, Suzanne. So this is the context of the conversations that we want to be having about this book, and give people, and I told you this before we hit record, I see this book as a book of hope and a book of possibility, and a book that can help inspire you that no matter what comes your way, because she addresses that you're going to have challenges land on your path in life, how do you handle them? How can you approach them? What are different alternatives that maybe you've never been taught before? And she's walked through this experience, and she guides you through her journey about the kind of decisions that she made throughout and how she chose to handle the dark things that happen on her path. Do you want to tell everyone kind of what the big aha experience was that you referred to in the book?
Well, the one thing that really caught my attention was breast cancer diagnosis. And wow, it's like, how could that happen to me? I do all this spiritual stuff. And so it was like, shocked me that I had to really, really deepen my practice of making sense of this experience. And it took a long time. And even though you can read the book and get ideas quickly, you can only use them when you've studied yourself, explored some of the reasons why you may have attracted an experience, how to look for the gifts. And that process I share in the book. Not that you have to copy me. I don't want you to copy me. I just want to express ways that you get out of being stuck. If you're stuck for a little while, that's okay. We're all stuck for a little while, but to stay there is a problem, because then we're suffering over our suffering.
Right. It's a double whammy.
Yeah.
And you're wanting to inspire people to find their ways that are going to be healing for their journey, right?
Right. It doesn't even have to be themselves. It could be someone in your family has a diagnosis, and it helps you understand the process for yourself as you're going through it with them. And the dark night of the soul is a term to express the dark time when you can't make sense of it. Why me? And so I go into another example of the dark night of the soul that I experienced, and your experiences will be very different. Your story will be different, and I want to inspire you.
Okay, good. So the book goes through the conversation. The chapters are, how you approached your breast cancer diagnosis and some of the things. And then towards the middle of the book, you get into this chapter about the inner work and the exploring strategies for self-healing. So we're going to skip through all the nitty-gritty details about the challenge, because everybody has a challenge. You find out what your challenge is in this podcast episode. I like for us to focus on the chapters that are talking about the exploring the strategies for self-healing and what that means to you, Suzanne, but also the audience can listen and see what it inspires for them. So does that jar any thoughts that you want to say, or would you prefer that I kind of go through your inner work numbered bullet points and we can address those?
Well, I feel like I want to talk about feeling unconscious of why this experience would land on my path.
Okay, let's hear it.
Spend a lot of time figuring out why. I don't think you can find every why, but I found enough that it calmed me down. And when I went through grieving, you have to grieve that things aren't as perfect as I thought it was. And the shadow work, where I looked at things that were unconscious to me, that were in my subconscious mind, that my conscious mind was not aware of. And I took stories from that I heard my mother tell me, and I went into meditation and could experience what that experience was when I was, a couple days old. And through tuning into my mom, tuning into my intuition. And so I want to say shadow work, looking at your unconscious is very important for healing ourselves. And I can give an example, like, anger petrified me. So that was something, I had to revisit again. I was already aware of that. And, having a mother that I wasn't sure when she was going to be angry, and I was very intuitive and felt like I had something to do with her being angry or not angry. And looking at what that trying not to be angry, that decision I made at a young age, that was a whole belief system that I had to unravel. And I thought I had already done some of that work, which I had done, but it just took me to a deeper turn of the spiral. And I guess what I'm trying to say is there's always more, and you'll never get everything, but you get to a place where you're comfortable enough that you can let it go. And then you can go through the process of whatever you need to do, whether it's forgiveness, whether you need to change habits, but all that inner work that we're about to talk about, then you're able to do it when you get to enough peace with the shock of something that dropped on your path. It could be a divorce, it could be losing a job, it could be any of the tragedies, like people experience with fires or floods or those kind of, can be just about anything.
Yeah. And I want to share what I shared in the workshop because I'm feeling led for the audience to understand, this lesson that I learned in myself. And that was, I'm 55 years old, and I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago that I became really conscious of the fact that just because something didn't happen to me didn't mean that it didn't affect me. And so here's that story. When I was about 9 years old, 10 years old, my sister who has since passed, she's not alive anymore. But when she was 18 or so at Baylor University, she was jogging around the soccer field at night, and people had told her, don't jog at night. It's dangerous. It's dark and things can happen to you. But she kind of had this attitude like, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. I got to get my jog in or whatever. And so while she was jogging around the second half, coming back around the soccer field loop, it was on a major highway, there was somebody like a troll under the bridge, this man. And after she passed the bridge to go back to campus, he came up behind her and grabbed her and pulled her under the bridge. And basically he raped her. And so she had that trauma and that experience. It was horrible. Of course, I was 9. I wasn't told at that time. But then my family asked my sister to tell me. I think I was around 10 because I pretended like I ran away from the house at night in the dark and I hid in the bushes. And when I came back, they finally found me or whatever. I was just like mad at something they wouldn't do for me. So I'm like, fine, I'm leaving in my pajamas. And so I went and hid in the bushes and watched them come out on the front porch looking for me and calling my name and all this stuff. I wanted to scare them. Well, when I came back, they decided it was time to tell me how bad things happen out in the world. And they told me about my sister's rape. And at the time I was 10, no one had ever told me about the birds and the bees. I didn't know about like real lovemaking. So to have learned that you're violated and that power can be taken over you and you could do something against your will, that made an impact on my 9-year-old mind, my 10-year-old mind. And I never thought anything about it because it physically didn't happen to me. But it became a conscious awareness, 50 years later, that I actually had made decisions and that I had made choices and I had made myself, in my mind, unkidnappable or whatever, unviolatable, in my head by certain actions that I had taken. And that's a false sense of security because I'm not kidnappable or whatever. So I had to work on that, and I had to recognize that I needed to heal that, and I needed to speak to my inner voice and my inner consciousness that I am safe and things are okay and I am an adult and I can take care of myself and I can be protective and I can be aware and conscious and vigilant and safe, to then calm that part of my nervous system that's like chronically active, because I didn't realize I had a chronically active state of concern and fear that could happen to me too. Right. So I'm sharing that only because, maybe something didn't happen to you, but maybe you created a belief around the something that happened to a family member. And that might be an area of healing that comes up for you that you weren't even aware. So that's why I shared that. I also want to mention, getting off of that, is that this book I'm reading talks about how emotions are stored in the endocrine system. And so, like any kind of emotional things have to do with your endocrine system. And so, there can be diseases and, health issues and challenges that are related to your endocrine system that you don't even know that those are because of some emotions that you're holding on to or that you held, like anger or frustration, or I never got enough, or it's never for me, or I'm the victim, or one, whatever your story is, if there's a health challenge, it could be related to, something specifically in the body like we're talking about here. So, just be open to spirit when you do go into meditation, and you can talk to your body and ask your body, right, what your body needs to speak to you about. Did you have a lot of experiences like that where you were talking to your body?
Oh, yeah. And, I uncovered a lot of things because my body will, when you start doing this work, then you start having a memory from the past that you didn't even know you would be thinking about, maybe when you were 5 years old, and then you kind of uncover how that's affecting you now, and change it and improve it with new intentions, new affirmations, to create a new pattern of thinking and behaving. And again, we just go one step at a time. I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I want you to know that as you put the puzzle together, when you want to understand an issue that dropped on your path, you can do it, but just go one piece at a time. Like you said, it took 50 years. I'm sure you took a lot of workshops, self-help books, and
Even in my therapy, because I've done therapy, my therapist was like, "Are you sure you weren't sexually molested with yourself?" And how a lot of people have
right,
unconscious, uncovered memories. And I was like, "No, I haven't." But it never occurred to me that the same kind of behavior that someone who might have been sexually molested, like typically they put on weight and they live and carry weight on their body. It's like a form of protection.
right.
And so, even though I wasn't sexually abused or taken advantage of in that way, my reaction so that I wouldn't almost became the same, And so it actually answered a lot of questions for me about why was I carrying and living joyfully with all this weight on my body, because I never felt like, poor me, I'm overweight. I just decided that I was okay. I was going to love myself in spite of my choices, because I was choosing to be overweight because I knew what it took to get the weight off, and I wasn't choosing that. So I was going to be okay, like fat and happy, That's what I just decided. Like what was so wrong with that? It was my thought.
Well, part of you changed their mind.
Well, I'm in a transformational state now because I'm ready to be fit and happy, so I'm ready to be fitter and, fit into an airplane seat better.
Yeah.
That kind of fitter.
Yes.
So anyway, do you want to talk about the inner work and exploring strategies for
Sure.
self-healing?
Yeah. Let's.
Okay. Well, will it help you if I go ahead and read the 1, 2, 3s to bring that back to our conversation? So this is the inner work paragraph. So the one is begin your day with the spiritual. I'm just going to read them and then we can discuss which ones you want to talk about. Begin your day with the spiritual practice. Number 2, spend quality time with yourself. Number 3, practice self-care. 4, get your true needs met. 6, build self-esteem and love. 7, keep a journal. 8, meditate. 9, use your mind and heart together. 10, be creative. 11, spend time in nature. 12, say affirmations. And then you have a whole list of potential affirmations that you give us, like 11 of them. So all of those, I guess you identified as ways to help stimulate inner work and self-healing.
Yes. That spending quality time with yourself is really important. And that's where you journal write, read words of wisdom, whether it's a daily affirmation book or a spiritual book that you're reading, or whether you pick a tarot card to get a thought for the day. There are lots of things that can stimulate you to do the inner work. And as you grow on the inside, it takes you further along your spiritual path where you have realizations. I can't tell you how many times I would journal write about an issue bothering me or somebody irritating me. And then I would write something on the page that just, wow, caught my attention. I had no idea I was thinking and feeling that way. So that was a surprise method to digest some of the emotions that I was holding on in my body. It helped me release trapped emotions. There's lots of ways to release trapped emotions. My experience as a therapist, I would say only maybe 10% of my clients would journal write. It's just not in the belief that that's really going to help me. And I used to save a research article stating that if you write for 20 minutes a day, after you experience it a month or two, then you start understanding how it helps you digest stuck places in your emotions and helps you integrate it into your system, which opens you to awaken further.
So also in that chapter, you go into some more non-traditional, like holistic and natural style approaches and techniques. Do you want to mention any that you found helpful in your own journey? Like, did you do sound healing, and what kind of things did you do?
A lot of things.
I'm laughing because there's so much. I've probably done half of them too.
Yeah. A book that's popular right now is called The Emotion Code. And the way I'm wired is I see one, I do one, and then I teach it. Even though I'm not trained and don't have the certificate, the book is written where you can immediately work on yourself and release trapped emotions. And so much of it's unconscious with this method, but there's a protocol that you follow. And I did it enough on myself and on some of my family members, my sister-in-law that are, open-minded and just want to try these things. And then when it works for them, and then, for some people, they make an immediate shift because they've worked on themselves a lot. Some people, it starts bringing up memories for them to start weaving together and integrating so that they can journal write if they need to do more work on it, but to make them more aware. And anyway, so I really like that method. I I really, can skip around in my mind. Tapping, emotional freedom technique. That's where you tap different places on your body that are meridians for acupuncture.
Mm-hmm.
And you have certain things that you say, like, I love and accept myself, even though my lower back hurts. And then you go through the process. And so both of these you can Google and get lots of wonderful information. I introduce those in the book, and it's very important if you're on this metaphysical journey to learn muscle testing, where you can directly communicate with your body. Back in the day, you might have seen somebody raise their hand and get a yes and get a no. That can be hard on the shoulders. So there's some easier ways to communicate with yes and no when you ask, like, should I take this vitamin? Or, I forgot this today. Is it my highest good still take the supplement? And then you can get a yes or a no. Most people respond by standing up, and they'll get a yes by leaning forward, and they get a no by leaning backwards. And you can ask, my name is Suzanne, and then I'll start leaning forward. My name is Lydia, then leaning backwards. Most people that I've done this with will immediately start leaning. Every now and then somebody is too much of a thinker and they want to influence the answers. One of my daughters is like that. So she'd rather me be a surrogate for her and get the answers, which you can do also. And I've also worked with people that it's not right for them at this time to use that method. So your muscle testing you always ask, am I ready to release a trapped emotion today? So that technique was very, very, both of those are very powerful.
And you mentioned body talk. Do you want to explain what that is?
Well, the first thing I do when I have a symptom is I go look at one of dozens of books that are out on the symbology or the metaphor of what that illness is about. And Louise Hay is a classic person who had a metaphysical background and would give the spiritual possibility for your issue. And what I do is I read one or two people, and I get then it triggers my intuition to say, no, that doesn't feel right, or I think it's taken me in this direction. I might journal write, but like looking up breasts, they deal with nurturing, they deal with mothering. Especially the left breast is mothering, how I was mothered. And when you read the book, you'll see there's a couple of, traumatic things that happened early on that could have contributed to the cause. But as I get in touch with releasing some of these possibilities, these teachers that use the body as metaphor are very helpful. And then I can go like journal write, like the things that I didn't think were done the best on how I was mothered. Then it might take me into a forgiveness process. It might take me into reading another book about how I wish it was and how I want it to be. And, there's just, the imagination can work in your favor here, because you can go back in time and redo and get your needs met. And it changes how you feel in the present. There's all kinds of interesting ways consciousness has showed me how you can heal. Years ago, there was a T-shirt that said, "It's never too late to have a happy childhood," and that essentially was saying you can go back, and if some things that I wasn't happy with in my mothering of my children, I can go back and use my imagination on giving them what I wish I could have done with my current level of awareness. And so there's lots of spiritual, metaphysical ways to take the information. And Ina Siegel, she always takes you through a process of asking the divine healing intelligence to release and shift. And so there's just wonderful teachers out there.
Yeah, I was telling you that I went to this weekend a gong, event, and I just want to tell this to my audience that our bodies are 57% water and fluid, and the only thing separating a gong from and the energy it creates from hitting into that body is the skin. And so that energy hits on gong, it goes into our bodies and it vibrates the cells. And I've had spontaneous healing of a shoulder injury from just going to a gong event. And you wouldn't even think that gongs could offer some level of, what it does is it pushes through any blockages that you might have. And their coughs were releasing and congestion was getting cleared. And it was amazing, so there's all kinds of ancient healing modalities out there. Just, I want people to be open, to be inspired. And you do say in the book, like, things will come to you through a newspaper clipping or an article on your phone, or, a blog post or a YouTube channel or a, podcast or whatever. Like, just be open, right? To be inspired to your own healing, right?
And anytime you have a question, there's an answer coming to you.
Just look for it, right?
Right. And it might take you in a different direction.
Yeah. And while you were speaking, it made me think of this quote that I love and I have lived by for 20 years since I heard it. And I actually used it today in one of my rebounding episodes. And I'm going to just mention it here. And it's the Wayne Dyer quote. I'm sure you've heard it before. It's the one that says, "If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." And so, have you ever heard that one, Suzanne?
I have.
Yeah, it's such a good, I think it's applicable to this conversation because a lot of what we're trying to heal and work through, it's really a matter of changing the way you perceive, whether it's how you were breastfed or not breastfed. In my case, I wasn't, because formula was considered like more nutritious than mother's milk in the 60s and 70s, which is crazy. So, I think I had some gut issues, back then when I was a child. Obviously I can change it now, because I wasn't breastfed. And so what else did I miss out on because I wasn't breastfed? But I'm just saying, like, just be open to healing. Like, so that happened. Okay. It happened. Now, how do I choose life to show up differently for me based on how I want to think about the life that I've led, right? Is that kind of where the book goes, right?
Yes.
I think chapter 7, you go into the joy, about finding joy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the secrets, no matter what's going on, to find joy in your day, something to be joyful about. You can look at the sky, you can look at clouds, you can look at a flower. When my kids were little, there was a magic mouse meditation, and I'll never forget the words of one of them. And it was about, let your anger lose its power and look at a flower so your anger will lose its power. And I've never forgotten that because flowers are very healing. And then I also want to say, ask the healing angels too, and ask for spiritual guidance. You'll get ideas in your dreams. You'll get ideas, just listening to Lydia's podcast because of all the different people she brings on. It's not an accident that you're attracted to her. She's got answers.
The people I have answers, and the people who I bring on have answers. Look at your chapter 7. It's called Catch Yourself Enjoying a Moment. And the very first line, I'm going to read the first 2 sentences. It says, the first word is joy. Joy brings more light into our lives. No matter the circumstances you have drawn into your life, pay attention when you catch yourself smiling and enjoy the small stuff. How true is that?
Yes, yes. And then that makes me want to think. I took Qigong for a couple years a while back, which is also a healing modality. But he always talked about the inner smile, and I've never forgotten that. And like when I wake up, I like it when I remind myself to wear my inner smile. And I don't have to show it if I'm around somebody grouchy, but I can feel that inner joy. And of course, and that makes me want to talk about self-esteem, because the more you're tapped into what other people think and feel and say, the more vulnerable you are to being pulled down. And when you have an internal locus of control, you get your okayness spiritually. You get your you don't have to rely on other people to compliment you or notice what you do. I like compliments. I love that Lydia loves my book, and I was motivated to write it not for the compliments. It was like,
you said you had to write it. Remember, you couldn't not write it, right?
Right. And when I just, for 3 months, man, I was typing away. And so anyways.
It was pouring out of you, and you just had to get it down. And it was a message for this time in the world, in our lives. And it's got options and ideas and inspiration and hope. And I hope everybody gets one for their bookshelf. Is there anything I feel like this is a good kind of wrapping up to your book. Is there anything that we need to talk about or share with the audience regarding anything around this? And if you say no, I'm going to read your final affirmations here at the end.
Okay.
Oh, that's in the epilogue. Are you saying you don't have anything else to say?
Page 47 has that nice.
I am my true self.
Yeah.
That one. Okay, hold on. How long is that? Let me see. Okay, you want me to read that? I'll read it.
Well, what do you think?
Yeah. I'll read it. That's good. We got time.
Okay.
All right. So let's share something. Okay, I want to get everybody in a mood. Okay. If you're driving, then pull over.
Don't close your eyes.
Right. A lot of people probably listen to podcasts while they're driving to and from work. So if you're not in a place to relax and just absorb, then look at how many. This is like 49 minutes into the podcast. Come back to the 49-minute mark and listen to this when you can just sit in your recliner or your bed and just hear what I'm about to say. I'm going to read for you these. I am my true self. Before, what would be cool? I want to end on this. Is this considered a poem? What is this? Did you write it?
Yeah.
Oh, these are your words?
Oh, yeah.
Everything. Oh, I love it. Okay, good. So we're going to end on Suzanne's words. So because we're going to end this way and y'all can have it at the end of the podcast and I'm just going to be quiet, let's wrap up the ending So
Okay.
tell everybody where they can connect with you and how they can find you if they want to find more of you.
Well, you're going to put the link to Amazon, or you
To
can
the
put
book,
yeah,
yeah. But
put
is
mine.
there a way for them to go? Do you have a website?
Yeah, I gave that in the beginning, but let me give it again because it's
Yeah.
full of wonderful stuff. Uh, I've been writing a newsletter for 20 years. Of course, I don't do it very often anymore. One thing I'll ask, if anybody's a writer or wants to write a self-help article, like, 3 or 5 word document, send it to me and maybe I'll put it in one of the newsletters. And so I like other people to write articles too.
I might have to become a writer.
Might have to, and then you can put one of the podcasts
I
underneath.
could write how much I loved your book.
Yeah. Well, I am going to put something in the next newsletter, but I'm not going to talk about that right now.
Have you ever heard that Bette Midler line in, I think it was Beaches, and she goes, "Okay, enough about me. What do you think about me?"
That's cute.
I know.
That's cute.
I always thought that was funny. Okay, so Innerworks, right? Innerworks Publishing?
Publishing.com. Yeah, I've
Okay.
self-published many of the books.
Okay. Are you still doing, like, if someone hears this and wants to hire you to be a speaker, are you still doing speaking events, or is that off the table?
I am still doing that, yes.
Okay, so she's available for hire too.
Yeah, there you go. It's hard to catch me if you want an individual session.
Yeah, you have to be better than an artwork session. The options. You got to have a strong sell to get her out of her studio. Right?
Yeah, or out of nature. I like being in nature too.
Yeah. So a retreat in nature in Colorado at the Broadmoor might be an option. If you pay for travel, she might come.
Yes, we can meet there.
We're a package deal. I'll come with her.
Okay.
Just kidding, guys. Okay, here we go. You're good. You're complete.
Yeah.
We're gonna end on your words. Okay. All right. So
Hold
tight, everybody. And what? Oh, go ahead. You want to say something, Suzanne?
Just take a deep breath, everybody.
Yes. And by the way, Suzanne, thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everyone, take a deep breath and listen to these truer words. I am my true self. I am worthy and precious being, an expression of life. I am reawakening to the inner knowing that spirituality, I am whole and complete. I stop hiding from living and being my true self. I am reawakening to the inner knowing that spiritually I am whole and complete. I practice unconditionally loving myself and unconditional forgiveness. The next step is the greater plan for my life is unfolding much like a rosebud beginning to bloom. I accept with excitement the challenge and responsibility of going to greater degrees of awareness. I spend quiet time daily to listen to and trust the greater wisdom within me to unfold, guiding me in making wise choices that support my growth. I accept myself right now, this moment, the way I am, even if there are things about me that I do not like and want to change. As I grow in awareness, I discover ways to heal and release habits, traits, and patterns of thinking and behaving that do not support me and reflect my true nature. Inner peace grows daily as I forgive all people and events that have wounded me, including myself. I nourish myself with a loving support system that encourages me to take the risk I choose to take in order to grow and change. I accept the support of close friends and family when I stumble and fall, make mistakes, get confused, meet unbearable challenges, or stop my growth because of frustration or fear. I also allow my friends and family to celebrate with me when I reach mountaintops of striving and achievement. I embrace each day as I live my life with ease, joy, awareness, and creativity. Resistance to what must be accepted melts away as I gladly move forward to change the things I can and play the hand I was dealt to the best of my abilities. I love being who I am, myself. And it is so.